Why was this show called Hardcore Justice? First of all, there were no hardcore matches on the card. Second, any and all references to that pay-per-view of the same name last year really should be done away with for obvious reasons. Anywho, let's get this thing started. Shelley, Aries, and Kendrick for the X Division title. A solid match that belonged higher on the card than it was. And yes, for all you haters out there, it even managed to tell a story, too. Maybe not as crazy a match as I thought it would be. It kind of felt like Aries and Shelley were holding back a little bit, maybe due to the story of Aries not being able to get in the ring. I'm not sure. Still a strong match regardless, though. It just sucks that Shelley got jobbed out again, especially considering how over he was. Aries, too. Both those guys were way more over than Kendrick. They need to address that, and Kendrick's weird-ass new music is not going to help matters any. Tara and Tessmacher versus Sarita and Rosita for the Knockout Tag titles. Again, the formula here seems to be that if you don't overbook the crap out of it, just let the women go out there and wrestle, and the matches are better. I thought this was just fine. All the women were good here. Even Tessmacher did well. I'll give her credit. She's still green as hell in there, but she's improved a lot in a short time. Wrestling-wise, I'd rank Tessmacher above Velvet Sky and Madison Rayne at this point, so I enjoyed this, and I'd say it was the better of the two knockout matches on the show. Pope versus Devon. Here's the problem with this. I don't care, because they haven't given me a reason to care about this feud, or either guy in it for that matter. I don't care about what Pope's fascination with Devon is, and because the booking has now shown us that Pope is more interested in Devon's family than in winning the Bound for Glory series, then I don't care about him trying to win it either. In fact, Pope shouldn't win it because he doesn't care about it. It means nothing to him. He's given up points to other people. All that's doing is making me never want to see this guy with a championship ever again. If it was a choice between the two, I would honestly rather see Devon win the Bound for Glory series at this point, because at least I believe that he actually wants to win it. Pope wins and gets 7 points. Sadly, I really don't give a crap. And I don't like saying that, because Pope could be a star in 5 minutes if they just used him right, but they're just intent on ruining this guy's character. Mickie James versus Winter for the Knockouts title. I've never thought these two had a ton of chemistry together, but I found this more enjoyable than any of their WWE matches. That said, earlier, the referee ejected Hernandez and Anarchia from ringside. Later on, the referee ejected Sarita and Rosita from ringside, but here, the referee just allowed Angelina to stay at ringside. Why? I don't know. Unfortunately, this was another case of there being so much interference in the match that the referee just ended up looking like an idiot. That was way overdone. But, as I said, these two don't have a lot of chemistry. They never have. So, adding a lot of extra stuff to the match might have been a good thing, as much as I hate to admit it. Winter winning the Knockouts title? That's fine. Mickie really didn't have any other quality opponents lined up. Sorry, Velvet, but it's true. And Winter's not my favorite or anything, but she's a talented person. And what's more, at least Winter has some class. She doesn't have to call the other knockouts skanks and whores and hoes and all that trashy garbage just to get cheap heat, unlike some other people I could mention. I appreciate that. So, I didn't have a problem with this. There is one thing I'm worried about, though. On the one hand, I was really concerned that they were building up to Mickie versus Velvet Sky for the title of Bound for Glory. This makes that less likely. On the other hand, it's possible that they gave Winter the title just so Velvet could be the one to take it from her. And that would be horrible. So watch out for that. Rob Van Dam versus Crimson. Let me get this straight. So Jerry Lynn, Van Dam's rival of many years, shows up from out of nowhere, says he wants to come out to the ring and watch RVD's back because he thinks the babyface Crimson, who has won all his matches clean, mind you, might try to cheat or get someone to interfere. And this doesn't set off any warning bells in Van Dam's head?
You people are fools!
The match wasn't bad, but I wasn't into it as much as I thought I'd be, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it was because you knew the finish the second Jerry Lynn came out. Maybe it was because the crowd was starting to die down at that point. Maybe it was because Mike Tenay seemed like he was actively trying to lull the entire audience into a coma with his announcing. Maybe it was a combination of those things, I don't know. Again, it wasn't a bad match, but I just wasn't feeling this one for some reason. Six-man tag, Fortune versus Immortal. A little chaotic at the end there, but a good match. I was very happy they didn't have Daniels cost Fortune the match like I expected, though I'm sure that heel turn is coming up before too long. But anyway, Fortune win, Immortal lose. Good. Thank you. Bully Ray versus Ken Anderson. This was a decent brawl, I guess, but I just couldn't bring myself to care about this one. The whole flip-flopping of Ken Anderson is just ridiculous. It seems like they have no idea where they're going with him. They're just flying by the seat of their pants right now. He's feuding with Immortal, and then he joins Immortal, and then he immediately starts to feud with Immortal again.
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo! What the hell is this all about?
What was the point of any of that? This is just stupid. Beer Money versus Mexican America for the tag titles. Storm and Rude managed to carry these guys to a better match than I expected. Hernandez and Anarquia managed to not injure anyone. Beer Money win, they keep the tag titles. That's all I care about. Next. Kurt Angle versus Sting for the world title. This was as good as you're gonna possibly get from Sting at this point. Not a great match by any stretch, but Kurt Angle managed to make it passable. Angle wins the title, thank God. But I don't know what the hell was going on with that finish. Angle said he wanted a clean win over Sting more than anything, and then he just hits him with a chair. And the stupid thing about this is that you have Angle go through this huge personal and emotional hell with the Jarretts, finally finishes his business with them after months and months of this stuff. Then he starts to train for the Olympics, which I imagine would be worth a lot of great PR for the company. Him winning the title clean with all that other stuff going on would have been a great feel-good story. But instead, you have him lie and cheat, stealing the title, painting him as the bad guy in a way that makes him impossible to root for.
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
I don't want to boo Kurt Angle after all that crap he just went through. I want to cheer the guy. But now they're trying to make it so that I can't. I guess just for the sake of doing another stupid, pointless swerve. So, I don't know what's happening there. Did not like that at all. Generally, Hardcore Justice was passable, but nothing that's going to pull in any new viewers. Just another middle-of-the-road pay-per-view that's become synonymous with the Hogan-Bischoff regime. Maybe a little bit better than that. At least there were mostly clean finishes, but that's really all I've got to say about it. Most of this show felt like it was on autopilot. There were no memorable matches. The Triple Threat Tag Team match was a lot of fun while it lasted, but it was too short just like the rest of them were. The number one contender knockout match felt pointless. Mickey is the former champion, so she should already have a rematch clause in her contract. I would have much rather seen Winter do something. Winter, who sat this show out, mind you. Although I did enjoy seeing Madison Rayne lose in embarrassing fashion, that was fun. The match was nothing, though. Madison still sucks. This was followed by a Robbie E match. Haha! This just felt like filler. Austin Aries was good on commentary, and I really do hope they don't wait too long to put the belt on him, but this seemed like it was done just so they could do a Robbie and Cookie breakup, which came out of nowhere and I didn't give a shit about. Speaking of the X Division, they made the announcement that it's going to have a weight limit now. Not sure how I feel about that. It does prevent guys like Abyss from competing in it, which is good, but it also prevents guys like Samoa Joe from competing in it, which is bad. Basically, they just turned it into a normal cruiserweight division, and this has Bischoff's fingerprints all over it. For some reason, Bischoff thinks that cruiserweight wrestlers should be kept separate from the heavyweights in their own division. And that's really just narrow-minded, because you don't give them a platform to expand beyond that when the time comes. If we applied that philosophy to everything, guys like Rey Mysterio and Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero and Daniel Bryan would never be anything more than cruiserweights. Bryan would never have been Mr. Money in the Bank, Eddie would never have been a world champion, Jericho would have never been a world champion, and Rey too, even though every world title reign he's had has sucked horribly. The point is, when you pigeonhole these guys into one specific role like this, you limit how far they can rise in the future, and that's stupid. I like the opening segment, even though it was another Immortal promo. I guess I have to give them credit for this. It really amazes me how much more enjoyable these Immortal segments tend to be when Hogan and Bischoff are not there and Bully Ray does all the talking instead. Because Bully Ray is a wrestler, he's great on the mic, and generally he's more entertaining and gets to the point a lot faster than those guys do, so these segments don't drag on nearly as much. And I've reached the point now where I feel I have to retract some of the things I said about this Bully Ray singles run. It took me a while to get on board with it, and it still doesn't change my feelings about the 3D breakup fake-out, but he's made a believer out of me. I mean, he's easily one of the most effective heels they've got on the roster right now, if not the most effective. I'd say it's between him and Austin Aries, so good for him. Christopher Daniels came out during the Triple Threat Tag Team match and revealed what this thing with him and AJ has been about. It's not that surprising. He challenged AJ to a rematch, presumably because he wants to know that he can beat AJ. I was really hoping they had something else in mind for this. Not that these two don't have fantastic matches together, but how many times do we have to go back to the well with this one? Is this really the only thing you can come up with for Daniels at this point? He's had an inferiority complex about AJ for years. Shouldn't his character have grown beyond this by now? It really smacks of lazy writing that this is the only meaningful feud that Daniels ever seems to have. I'm sorry, but stagnant characters in any medium really annoy me. I'm not saying you should change something that works, but characters have to evolve. They have to change over time. If they're just doing the same thing over and over again, they get boring. I'm sure it'll lead to a great match, but it's just nothing we haven't seen before between these two. It was at this point that the show really went off the deep end. The Jarretts came out, and they've been doing this whole Mexican shtick since Jeff won the AAA title. Up until now, it was harmless enough, but here it felt like they crossed a line they really shouldn't have. They brought out two non-English speaking Mexican janitors. I think that was Los Bendios. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. So Jeff and Karen are trying to get them to say that Jeff is like the greatest thing ever, king of Mexico, blah, blah, blah. And these guys are like, okay, no speak English. And then finally Jeff just beats the shit out of them. You know, this is a very ultra-PC era we're living in. It seems like everyone is watching their tongue, afraid of insulting someone or offending this person or that ethnic group or whatever. The word racism gets thrown around an awful lot. I'm not saying that's what this was, but I'm not gonna lie, I felt a little uncomfortable watching this. And once Hector got involved, I think it improved, but they were in some pretty murky waters there for a minute. And then there was Kurt Angle. Kurt's explanation for why he screwed Sting at the pay-per-view was that Hogan called him on the phone and told him that Dixie Carter knew that Karen was having an affair with Jeff Jarrett while they were married and lied to him about it. So even though Hogan is a heel, even though Kurt had no reason to trust him, even though Hogan presumably had no real evidence of this, even though Hogan had everything to gain and nothing to lose by getting the world title off of Sting, Kurt takes him at his word and screws Sting out of the title. You know, because Hogan has proven himself to be so trustworthy in the last year.
This whole show is ridiculous!
So Kurt hates the Jarretts, and because Dixie lied to Kurt about the Jarretts, Kurt decides to align himself with Hogan, who is the leader of a faction that includes the Jarretts!
This whole show violates everything about my journalistic integrity!
What's more, Kurt says that when Dixie brought him in, she told him that she was going to surround him with young talent. So in an act of revenge, Kurt now wants to destroy all the young talent, even though that surrounding him with young talent thing never happened!
I was a war correspondent, and now I'm covering this!
Just so I'm clear on this, these writers made a huge production of turning Ken Anderson heel, making him the top guy in Immortal, just so they could have Immortal turn on him a few weeks later, so they could turn him face again, and then turn Kurt Angle heel from out of nowhere, so they could make Kurt Angle the top guy in Immortal!
What the fuck?
Couldn't you have accomplished the same thing by just keeping Ken Anderson as the heel champion for a while? Why did you have to do all this convoluted shit? The only thing this accomplishes is making me think that Vince Russo has the worst case of ADHD in recorded human history. I am baffled that anyone involved in creative thought this was the right way to go. There's no coherent through line here. They're just doing random shit. They don't care that it doesn't make any sense, obviously. They just throw shit at the wall, and if it sticks, they put it on TV. Hey, you know what? I feel like turning Anderson face this week. Sure, what the hell? He's been a heel for about a month and a half now. He's overdue for a face turn. Yeah, but now Immortal needs a new top heel. I know! Let's turn Kurt Angle! Kurt Angle? Well, it won't make any sense at all, but since when have we ever cared about that, am I right? I know! We'll think of some paper-thin bullshit explanation for it. Or barring that, we'll just sort of gloss over it. The fans are stupid, they won't care if it doesn't make sense. As long as it's entertaining.
I'm done! I am done with you! I'm done with this entire show!